Okay, and we're back yet again with yet more adventure game books. This time, another bit of a clone of the Choose Your Own Adventure type series, and that in this case we have Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. Now, this is a bit of an odd one in that you've got basically it's a crossover between two different series, wrapped up in a Choose Your Own Adventure style book. Now, it's basically a clone of Choose Your Own Adventure, but it's very unusual to actually describe this. I first came across two of these books when I was in middle school, and I was going through a phase of finding as many of these kind of books as I can. For all it's a clone, it also does things in a very different way, in that it's more like you're trying to plot your own story, or make your own movie, or something along those sort of lines. It's very different in that regard, at least as far as I can remember, because I've not actually read them yet. I've not read these anyhow, and I've actually got not one, not two, not three, not four, but all 6 of the series, because there's at least 2 others that I've managed to get in different styles. That's actually book 5, that's book 6. Let's just move them both into the proper view of the camera there. Yeah, as you can see, it's obviously had different kinds of imprints at some point. Book 6 is notably smaller in overall dimensions. Book 5 is the exact same dimensions, I think. Yep, exactly the same dimensions as these books. But I'm not entirely sure which ones comes first, because when you look through the actual copyright stuff, they don't actually give the individual years that these books were actually released. It just gives you the first date, which is something like 1984 or 1985, I think. Let's just take a look. Yeah, copyright 1985, and doesn't go into any other details beyond that. But in all of the books, you get all of this. Dear fans, since so many of you have written to us saying how much you wanted to be detectives like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, we figured out a way. Of course, we had to put our heads together to create mysteries that were so baffling they needed help from everyone, including Nancy, Frank, Joe, and you. In these exciting new Be a Detective mystery stories, you'll be part of a great team of amateur sleuths following clues and wily suspects. At every turn, you'll have a chance to pick a different trail filled with adventure that may lead to danger, surprise, or an amazing discovery. The choices are all yours. See how many there are and have fun. And signed CK and FWD. Now, CK refers to Caroline Keane, who is the writer of the Nancy Drew books, and Franklin W. Dixon is the writer of the Hardy Boys. And I say that quite loosely because these are basically pen names for a team of ghostwriters, because as far as I'm aware, there are no such people have ever existed. Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys are 2 separate entities that were created independently and have had various crossovers since at least the 70s. There's been at least 1, maybe 2 TV series based on their adventures and hijinks and whatnot. But they were written completely separately of each other, and then at some point they got merged together. I don't know the full history here, but those 2 people don't exist. They are just the names of ghostwriters. Lots of ghostwriters for literally decades, because as far as I can tell, there's been some iteration of the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew for a good few decades. Probably more than 50 or 60 years, maybe. Possibly longer. I'm not entirely clear on that. But I can remember reading at least 2 of these back in the day, and I think it might be one of these 2 books, because of what you can see on the pictures on the front cover here. It looks very much like it's the same kind of building, which looks like some stately home sort of castle looking kind of thing there. It could be the same building, it might just be very similar, it might be the same building at different angles, I'm not sure. But what I can distantly remember is that in at least one of the books that I read, you had an old man who lived in a big house like this, who seemed to be haunted, if I recall correctly, and he was calling in the Hardy Boys, who are old friends of his, to investigate it. And one of them gets injured, and he actually ends up in the hospital, and the old man ends up paying for a private room. I seem to recall he had a love of hot cocoa. That seemed to be his solution for everything. So it might be one of these 2 books that happens in. As far as the other book that I can remember, I can't really recall which of these it might be. It could potentially be any of them, because there's no clues on the imagery on the front to really marry them up with what I can remember, which basically involved the exciting adventure of the Hardy Boys waiting in an airport for Nancy to land her plane in a storm, if I recall correctly. But in that regard, this is one of the things that I can remember that distinctly makes it different from Choose Your Own Adventure. If the characters are separated, you can go back and forth. Choose Your Own Adventure, you are literally playing it yourself, and this, you're more sort of like the editor of a TV series, deciding what would make the best episode for a TV show. And these are probably following on from the TV series of the time that was out in the 70s. There's definitely some sort of 70s looking fashions going on there, as far as I can tell. To my mind, it's 70s kind of fashions, and it's kind of pseudo 80s kind of fashions there in some regards, but but yeah, in that particular story, which I can't remember which one it was, you could jump between the Hardy Boys having their adventure in the airport and Nancy trying to land a plane. And what I do remember that is, if you stuck with the Hardy Boys, one of them got into the exciting situation where they decided to go and get a drink from a vending machine, and an alarm went off when they put a coin in, and the security guard came in, accused them of using false coinage, used the key that of course every security guard has for every vending machine on whatever site they happen to be guarding, opened it up and found a coin that was actually denomination from another country, which the Hardy Boy couldn't remember where he got, as far as I can remember. Anywho, this is just really a first look. I think that's basically it for the time being. If I can splice in some artwork from the books themselves over this review, obviously I'll be doing that as well, just to give you some idea of what it looks like on the inside. I intend to do Let's Reads of all of these, so I've got at least 6 potential Let's Reads at some point, as well as Let's Reads from all other kinds of adventure game books that I've got going. So I will do the Let's Reads, and then I'll do proper reviews following up after the Let's Reads, just to give my actual thoughts on that. So let me know what your thoughts are below. Have you read these before? Have you read other adventure game books before? What did you think of these? If you have read them, might you be tempted to try to read them? No, they're not for sale. They're part of my collection now. I'm keeping them. It's something I wanted to keep. As are all the other books that I've got in my collection, I am keeping them. I'm a keeper, not a seller. But yeah, I am definitely looking forward to reading through these for the interests of reliving my youth. Okie dokie, I'll call it time there. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.